People say one signature can change your entire life. For me, it happened on a rainy Tuesday. At 23, I was barely keeping my family together. Between university classes, a cafe job, and endless hospital bills for my mother, every day felt like a battle I was slowly losing. Then I met Professor Amelia Hart. She was only 28, already the youngest assistant professor at the university, and the heir to one of the country's largest companies. Students admired her intelligence, but feared her cold, unreadable expression. One afternoon, after class, Amelia asked me to stay behind. "I've arranged for another professor to take over your coursework," she said calmly. I stared at her, confused. Did I do something wrong? She shook her head. "No. I need to make sure there will never be a conflict of interest." I had no idea what she meant. A few days later, I found out. Amelia's late grandmother had left behind a condition in her will. To inherit the company and keep thousands of employees from losing their jobs, Amelia had to be legally married before the end of the month. She didn't want love. She needed a partner she could trust. At the same time, my landlord had given us 48 hours before we were evicted. The hospital refused to continue my mother's treatment until we paid the overdue bills. Everything was falling apart. Amelia looked at me with the same calm expression she always wore. "This will only be a legal arrangement," she said. "In return, your family's debts will be cleared, your mother's treatment will continue, and your education will be fully funded." I should have refused. Instead, I signed the papers. Our marriage made headlines overnight. The media called us an unlikely couple. The billionaire professor and the struggling student. Everyone believed it was a fairy tale. Only we knew it was a contract. At first, living together felt awkward. Our conversations were short. Meals were quiet. The enormous mansion felt colder than winter. But little by little, I noticed the woman hiding behind Amelia's icy reputation. She always left breakfast waiting for me before I woke up. Whenever I studied too late, she'd quietly place a blanket over my shoulders. When my mother finally smiled again after weeks in the hospital, Amelia stood outside the room, pretending she wasn't crying. She cared far more than she allowed herself to admit. One evening, I found Amelia sitting alone in the mansion's library. The confident billionaire looked lonely. "My parents only cared about the company," she whispered. "I spent my whole life believing achievements mattered more than people." For the first time, I reached for her hand. "You don't have to be alone anymore." She looked at me as if no one had ever said those words before. Weeks turned into months. The contract that once felt like a prison slowly became the safest place either of us had ever known. Then one morning, Amelia placed the marriage agreement on the dining table. "You can leave whenever you want," she said softly. "The contract has been fulfilled." I looked at the papers, then at her. For the first time since we'd met, she looked afraid. Not of losing the company. Of losing me. I smiled, picked up the contract, and quietly tore it in half. Tears filled Amelia's eyes. "So," as she whispered. I stepped closer until only a heartbeat separated us. I didn't stay because of the contract. I stayed because somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you. Amelia gently touched my cheek, her hands trembling for the very first time. I love you too. When she kissed me, there were no cameras, no reporters, no business deals. Only two women who had found home in each other. Sometimes the family you save ends up saving you too. And sometimes the greatest love story begins with a signature that was never supposed to mean forever.